Good morning, Morai Barabotai, Bruchim Abayim. We are continuing on Masechet Makkot, and we are on Daf Tet Zayin, Amud Bet, by the two dots, about 17 lines down from the top of the Amud. Today's Amud is being learned as a Zchut for Rufah Shlema Av Yoshua ben Esther, and for Rufah Shlema Av Rachel Simcha bat Nahid, that should have full recovery, Rufah Shlema Be'ezrat Hashem. Amen. This month's learnings of the community has been sponsored graciously by the Dayan family, the Kohen family, the Shei family. Should have ultimate hatzlacha in everything that they do, Be'ezrat Hashem. Amen. So this is very, very geschmack. The Gemara that we're going to have is about eating nevelot v'terefot shkasim urmasim that the Mishnah in Daf Yud Gimel spoke about, and some of the details, especially speaking about small creatures and bugs and so on, which is very, very much on everyone's mind, of what you have to check. Is it really Asur? How many Isurim? That is partially discussed in our Gemara over here, even though that's not necessarily the full Sugya, but that's definitely something important that we're going to discuss today. So the Mishnah said in Daf Yud Gimel that one of the items that the person gets malkut for is a person that would eat nevelot utrefot, things that are non-kosher. Ha'ochel nevelot v'terefot shkatzim urmasim is going to get malkut, says the Mishnah. So says our Gemara over here, Amar Rav Yehuda, Hayman de achal binita de bekarba. A person that eats a worm, a bug that is found in cabbage, in kruv, he gets malkut malkinle, mishum sheres hashores al haaretz, for the isur av sheres hashores al haaretz. Now, before we even explain this further, just a little preface. The Gemara in Chulin Daf Samech Zayin explains that not every bug that you eat is asur. If you want to find the bug that's mutar, you can find. Sometimes, if not, you could have bugs in the water or on earth that would be mutar. For instance, if you have, says the Gemara, a worm, a creature that was born on a trunk of a tree, even though that he has not hatched yet, or he hatched and he hasn't walked and stepped in his life yet, it's still considered sheres hashores al haaretz, because the pasuk says, for it to be asur, it needs to be a sheretz that moves on earth. So if it's created on earth, even though that he hasn't moved yet, he hasn't walked yet, it passes for being sheres hashores al haaretz. If, says the Gemara, you have a fruit, many other bugs, they lay their eggs beneath the outer layer of a fruit. So then the bugs hatch inside the fruit. So if you have a fruit that's already cut off from the tree, sitting on your table, and now a bug hatches inside there, if you eat that fruit, you are not in transgression of anything, because it's not sheres hashores al haaretz. If the bug comes out of the fruit, at that moment it already is sheres hashores al haaretz. So even if it goes back into its hole, doesn't make a difference. Now it is sheres hashores al haaretz. And the Gemara there has a question: how about if you have a fruit that's attached to the tree, and this happens? Now, the tree itself is considered extension of the earth. So, if it's there, it's considered sheres hashores al haaretz without moving, without anything. How about inside the fruit, but it's attached to the ground? Do we look at the fruit as an extension of the tree also, or is it its own thing? Because it's going to be taken off, it's a fruit, it's not a tree. And the Gemara leaves that as a question that the Gemara deals with. I'm just bringing this as a preface to understand that not every bug is considered sheres hashores al haaretz. Therefore, it would be a chidush that the Gemara over here is saying, this according to Ramban. Ramban makes this connection with our Gemara and the Gemara in Masechet Chulin. Says that's the chidush of the Gemara, that you have a cabbage The cabbage is not, it's like a trunk of a tree because it doesn't have any trunk. It itself is the produce. So it doesn't have it. So therefore, if you have a worm inside of it, it is considered sheres hashores al haaretz, and you get lashes for it. Same would be with a romaine lettuce head, right? Even though that maybe hatch it will be still sheres hashores al haaretz. So he makes a lot of nafkamina. Now, in parentheses, usually when you have the word binita, it is a reference to small fish. And that's what the Ritba says over here. It says binita, one step back. The Tosafot over here, the small Tosafot that starts with binita, asks the question, so wait a second, what's the chidush that you have a worm inside the cabbage and it's considered asur? So now we already explained according to Ramban what the chidush would be, right? That would be an answer to this. But the Tosafot feels it's pashut. If you have a worm inside the cabbage, inside a lettuce, of course it's asur. So therefore the Tosafot say, this is coming to teach you that even if you have a fish-looking creature that's swimming in the water, it looks like a small fish, but you can never find it in the river. It only is found in the ditches of Macharesha. That also is considered sheres, and it will be asur. Right? It could be a tadpole, it could be other things, whatever it may be, it's considered sheres as well. Says the Gemara. Story to support this issue. There's this fellow that ate a cabbage. He went to the restaurant and had a salad, a cabbage, and he had this bug in it. And what happened was, Nakde Rav Yehuda. Rav Yehuda took him to Bedin, and he gave him a nice few sets of Malkut. As we'll see, it's not just one set. Every lav in the Torah that you have will get one set of Malkut. When you have a small creature, you could get up to 6 sets of Malkut for every one of those bugs that you eat, right? Because it could be 2, 4, 5, or 6 different lavim, depending on what type of creature it is that you're consuming, because the Torah speaks about this so many times. By the way, once we're at it, the Pri Chadash, Rabbi Chizkiah di Silva, in the beginning, in his preface to Siman Peidalit of Yoredeah, which is the Halachot of Tolaim, he writes, he says, why is it that people in our generation have such bad traits and character development is such a difficult thing? People have bad midot. And it's just because of Tolaim. Because people who eat things that are not kasher, it affects a person's neshama, affects a person's character. And says the Pri Chadash, the most serious kashrut alert that people don't pay attention is Tolaim. And it's very true, because we keep strictly kosher kitchens nowadays, everything with the hechsher and this, but the machalot asurot have a very serious and easy way to creep into our kosher kitchens, and that's through Tolaim. So Pri Chadash goes as far as that this is one of the most serious svarim that has ever been written, to the degree that many hold that whenever you don't have a psak clear from Maran Shulchan Aruch, Kibalnu Raud Maran, if you don't have clear from Maran, you go after Pri Chadash. Chadash was a tremendous luminary of Torah and Halakha, and he says it affects people to the degree that he attributes the lack of proper midot in his generation to the isur of Tolaim. So that being said, says the Gemara, Amar Abaye, Achal Putita Loke Arba'a. If you eat Sheret Hamayim, the small creatures that are in the water, they live in the water, you get 4 sets of Malkut. How many is that? 4 times 39, 156, right? 156 times lashes, that's what you gotta get. Why? Now let's explain this, how it works. Every sheretz, and that's what Rashi explains over here, every sheretz, to begin with, out the door has 2 lavim associated with it. Twice in the Torah that says, do not eat shrasim, right? If you take a look, ושני lavim ktuvim בשרסתם, ולא תשקסו את נפשותיכם בכל השרץ השורס. That's one, which includes any sheretz. Could be sheretz hamayim, water creatures. Could be sheretz haaretz, ones who are on above water, on the ground. And the second one is v'lo tetameu bahem, umashma ben sheretz hamayim ben sheretz haaretz. So that's already two. By sheretz hamayim, you have additional two that is once mentioned in Vayikra, once mentioned in Dvarim, repeated again. So therefore you have two original ones and two additional ones. You have four lavim for this sheretz, one putita, one sheretz, one creature which lives in the water. And by the way, the Rishonim already write, the reason that the Torah has so many repeats on this is because of the importance of this subject. It is so important and it's easy to transgress because they're there in our food, that the Torah has to go over and over and over again and again and again, warning us against it. And when something is warned against multiple times, it adds lavim because telling you how important the transgression is. So says the Gemara, Nemala, you eat one end, even though that's not kazayit. Normally, if you eat a little pig, a little piece of pig, right, by mistake went into your food, like a cube of ham, well, you did something from the Torah. It's chatzi shiur is asur min haTorah, but you haven't transgressed the lav of nevelot utrefot. You haven't. You eat one end, wavela, five, not one. You have five transgressions. Why? Says the Gemara. Look, chamesh mishum sheretz hashoretz al haaretz. You have the two regular ones. You have the two lavim that every sheretz has attached to it, as we explained. And then you have sheretz hashoretz al haaretz as well. It's mentioned three times by itself. The sheretz, it's not sheretz hamayim. By putita, which is a water creature, you had the two original ones and two additional ones, right? These two additional ones you don't have by a nimala because it's not in water. So erase that. You have the two original ones and three times that in one, back to back, three psukim back to back in the Torah, it says it three times. The sheretz hashores al haaretz is asur. So therefore, three plus the two original ones, it's five lavim that you get for one nimala, for one end. So by the way, this is in summertime. It's very important because you eat outside, especially if it's a little dark and you don't pay attention. In 2 minutes, you could have. We had this once happened by Kiddush. We set up like half an hour before the guests come, and it was outside. By the time the guests came, when just one of the kids had taken the cork out of the wine bottle, as I poured the wine, it was 5, 6, 7. I don't know how many of these small creatures that was inside. Thank goodness that there was enough light to be able to see them. But these things can happen immediately if you're not paying attention. So says the Gemara, if you have a tzirah, if you have a flying insect, if you have a tzirah, it's like a hornet, but any flying insect, you could have this. You know, for instance, in the common ones, you have not those even. You could have very simple thrips. They are flying insect, and they're in kimat every single species of food, of greens that you have. And they don't start flying in the beginning. You have baby thrips, and then the adult ones, they actually have wings and they fly. So you have a flying insect, says the Gemara, you get 6. That's the maximum you could get. So what is that? Says the Gemara, because a flying insect also is considered sheretz hashores al haaretz. So you have the two original ones. You have the 3 of sheretz hashores al haaretz, but in addition to moving on the ground, they also fly. And that is sheretz ha'of, an additional 6th lav in the Torah that speaks about sheretz ha'of. Shesh mishum sheretz ha'of. So that's the maximum that you could get for every bug that a person has, so long as the bug is intact. So says the Gemara, Amar Rav Achai, Hamashed, this is just in parenthesis, a very interesting one. Hamashed nekavav over mishum balchaksu. One of the lavim that we mentioned was balchaksu. It's don't abominate, don't disgrace your nefesh, your soul. And says the Gemara that it's not only by eating things that are shkasim urmasim, but you could transgress this lav by not going to the bathroom on time when you need it. Right? If you need bowel movement or even ktarim, doesn't have to be just gdolim, even any type of waiting on a need of using the facilities is over mishum balchak. So this is machloket rishonim if it's the oraita or the rabbanan. Many of the rishonim hold that this is a full-fledged isur the oraita. And therefore, you got to be careful with it, right? The Ben Ish Chai writes that you're in the middle of a daf Zohar or daf Gemara, you're learning. So, okay, I'm going to finish this line up to 2 dots and go to the bathroom. So don't do that. You have to go right away. The Chafetz Chaim in Mishnah Berurah writes, obviously this has limits. The limits is if you can't hold it for another 72 minutes, then you're mamash in transgression. You have to, even if you're in the middle of a thing, you have to stop and go. But says the Chafetz Chaim, says the Ben Ish Chai, even if you're not up to that level, lechatchila, a person should go, even if it's going to cost you partial loss of tefillah betzibur and so on. Still important. Again, we're not getting into the details of the halacha for this, but that's the isura balchaksu. Nafshotechem Amar Rabbi Bar Abaye. Rabbi Bar Abaye said, "Hayman the shati bekarna de umana," a person that would use the glass vessels of an uman. Uman was called a person that let blood for people. He was an expert in letting blood. Now, back in the day, one of the main ways that people used to heal themselves from high blood pressure or high levels of fat and whatnot was letting blood on a regular basis. And you have to be very careful because you could kill a person like that. So they would let blood, and they had vessels to accept the blood that was being let out, and then they would pour it out. So these vessels are dirty with blood. They're disgusting. So it says the Gemara, if you use one of those to drink water, you are over an balchakasu. It's a very distasteful thing, and therefore, pun intended, and therefore it's going to be over an balchaksu. There's a whole discussion whether people could use other communities mesorah for things that are kosher or not. For instance, the great example of it is, would be OU about 15 years ago, maybe or more, they have a mesorah dinner that 2 individuals are very much involved with researching different communities and their kosher area of machalot asurot, of the customs that different communities have. And one time they actually researched the Yemenites' minhag of eating grasshoppers, kosher grasshoppers. The grasshoppers are a great source of protein. And they had, what they do is when they research it, they actually serve it in the Mesorah dinner once a year in OU, right? So they had like some chocolate covered grasshoppers in the Mesorah dinner of OU in New York. And there were people who were eating it, taking pictures and so on. And I was thinking the fact that the Shach writes that even if you have a mutter dike food, but it is disgusting for you, absolutely disgusted when you chew on it, when you eat it, you may not be transgressing the isur of shkasim or matzim because this is kosher grasshopper, but you may be in transgression of the isur of balchaksu because for you is that it's something that your soul does not accept, so to speak. So says the Gemara, you could have that in more of a conventional way when you drink water out of a karna de umana, this dirty, bloody thing of the blood leather. It will be the isura balchaksu. And here, even those rishonim who say that balchaksu of bathroom is the rabbanan, they hold this one is the oraita. So you're dealing with a pretty serious transgression over here. Says the Gemara, Amar Rava, by the way, the blood of human being is not Isur Doraita. It's Asur to drink blood of human being because of Marit Ayin. That becomes a whole question. If your gums are bleeding and you take a bite into a sandwich and you have all the blood on the rest of the sandwich, you can't take a second bite into that because now it looks like you have blood on your sandwich, but the bleeding inside the mouth would be fine. You could just swallow whatever is coming in because that is not a Marit Ayin, that is covered and it's fine. But nevertheless, if you have a blood of somebody else inside this thing, you may not be technically over on eating anything that is asur in that way, and there's no blood, it's batel, whatever, it's not even Marit Ayin, but it is something that is not pleasant, and you will be involving a isur. So Amar Rava bar Rav Huna, risek tish'a nemalim. The Gemara comes out with a hechi timsa, a scenario in which you could transgress not 5 but 6 lavim for eating our own good old ants, right? So we mentioned an ant in Mala, you get 5 lavim for. But Mara says you could have a scenario in which you'll get 6 lavim for that as well, even though that's not a flying insect. Says the Gemara, risek tish'a nemalim. If you have a number of ants, he says 9, it's not necessarily 9 as we'll see in the Gemara, depends on the size of the ants. If you have 9 dead ants that are crushed, that means the body is not intact, it's just the pieces of body together. And then you have a live one together with them, lekazait, and you had it in your, for instance, a romaine lettuce is like korech, right? You have those with your lettuce, you will be over on 6 lavim, says the Gemara. Lokesh shesh. Why? Chamesh mishum beria. You get 5 because of beria. The one live one that you're getting, that has 5 of its own. But the 6th would be ve'echad mishum kazait nevela. If 10 of them together are 1 kazait, you also have kazait of a nevela. Because as Rashi explains, even though that nevela is not for beria, but as you're chewing and eating this 10th one, that also dies, and now it's altogether a kazait of machalot asurot, a kazait of tray food, any kazait of any tray food. You have a lav of its own, so you have 5 lavim for the one that is intact, as the isur of 2 for regular sheretz and 3 for sheretz haaretz, combined 5 lavim, together with eating a kazait of nevela, which will be its own 6th lav that you will be transgressing. Rava says, in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Rava Amar Rabbi Yochanan, afilu shnaim, it's not necessarily 9 or 10, it could be 2, it could be 1, depending on what the size of the creature is. And so long as it adds up to a kazait, it will be asur. Says the Gemara, Rav Yosef Amar, afilu echad vehu, velo pligi. It's not a machloket, how many. It's not a game of numbers. It's rather what the size is. Does it add up to kazait or does it not add up to kazait? If it does add up to kazait, then you'll have the 5 lavim of the regular ant plus the isur of a kazait of nevela. Says the Gemara, next case in the Mishnah, achal tevel u'maser rishon. So the Mishnah spoke about things that are in nature kosher. They're not treif, but they are treif because you have not gone through the process of giving what needs to be given to Levim and Kohanim, and therefore not only nevelot v'terefot shkasim urmasim, but says the Mishnah, achal tevel u'maser rishon. If you eat tevel, which means a produce that has been completed its process, but you have not separated terumot u'maserot from it, or if you eat maser rishon, it has to go to the Levi, and you haven't given it to him, you kept it for yourself, or Maaser Rishon shelo nitla terumato, or a Levi himself that gets Maaser Rishon. What does the Levi do with Maaser Rishon? He has to tie it and give the Maaser of it to the Kohen. We call it Maaser mina Maaser, or Terumat Maaser. He has to give to the Kohen. If the Levi eats the Maaser that he gets before he ties it and gives the tenth to the Kohen, that also is considered Machalot Asurot. Maaser Sheni, and it's not only that, but also Maaser Sheni is a problem. What's Maaser Sheni? After you take Teruma Maaser and give it to Kohen and Levi, you have to also tie it a second Maaser, which you eat yourself. That is called what? Maaser Sheni. That's Maaser Sheni. You eat it, but you have to eat it in Yerushalayim. If you can't schlep it to Yerushalayim, it's too many, too much, too heavy, then you are mechalel. You redeem it on money. You take that money to Yerushalayim and you buy food items and you eat it in Yerushalayim. It's a way to make sure people, A, go to Yerushalayim, B, have a great time in Yerushalayim. But that's only for the first, second, fourth, and fifth year. The same second tithe that you have to give in the third and sixth year is called something else, and you're not going to eat it. It's called Maaser Ani, and you have to give it to the Aniyim to support the poor in Klal Yisrael, and that's considered Maaser Ani. So says the Gemara, the Mishnah does not mention anything about Maaser Ani. So the Gemara is going to ask the question, what's with Maaser Ani? So let's read the Gemara together. Achal tever u'maaser rishon v'chule. Amar Rav. Achal tevel shel maaser ani. If you eat a tevel of maaser ani, that means you have done your tithes of the first round, terumot u'maaserot, but you haven't done maaser ani yet. So our Mishnah tells me maaser sheni. How about maaser ani? Says Rav, look here. He's going to also get lashes. It's not just Maaser Sheni that's a problem, but it's going to be Maaser Ani as well. Says the Gemara, Keman. Tana the Tanya, this is like the Tana that we have in the Braita. Amar Rabbi Yossi, Yachol lo yeh chayav ela al tevel shelo hura mimenu kol ikar. Can it be that you only get lashes on actual tevel, that you have the produce you took from your field and you haven't even given teruma or maaser? Hura mimenu teruma gedola velo hura mimenu maaser rishon. How do I know that if you didn't do maaser rishon, or you did even maaser rishon, but you haven't done maaser sheni, or even maaser ani? Minayin, how do I know? Talmud lomar, because the pasuk says lo tuchal leechol bish'arecha. The pasuk says you can't eat from this in your place. You have to take it to Yerushalayim. Ulhalan hu omer ve'achlu bish'arecha ve'saveu. He talks about maaser ani. Same word of bish'arecha ve'saveu. Mala'alan maaser ani. Afkan maaser ani. That here also when he says bish'arecha is coming to talk to you about not just maaser sheni, but includes the third and the 6th year's separation of maaser ani as well. And therefore, aman rachmana lo tuchal, you can't do it, which would be resulting in a lav, which would get malkut as well. We'll, Bezat Hashem, continue this in the days to come.